Good evening. My guest tonight is among the most accomplished communicators in the country, if not the world. But most of you probably don't recognize his name or won't recognize his face. I guarantee you all know his work because it's part of our environment every day. I guarantee you've all seen his work. Paul Rand is responsible for hundreds of graphic design things we see in our daily lives. Among them, the IBM logo, Westinghouse logo, UPS, ABC Television, countless others. I'm glad you could make it. Mr. Rand, thank you for coming. I want to ask a real, maybe kind of a cynical question at the outset. I mean, I'm a graphic designer, so maybe I have my own answers, but what does the world need with graphic design? I mean, what does it do for us? To the average person may wonder, it may seem like a kind of a, fussy little concern with moving words around and pictures around. So what good does it do us?
It's an interesting question. I've been thinking about it for many years, and and up to rather recently, I sort of concluded that we were not very important.
Okay.
Or you can put it another way. I mean, there used to be a guy in my agency, in my agency days, he would say, how is it possible to make so much and do so little? Anyway, I discovered that after thinking about the subject for so many years, that we're not as unimportant as we think we are. Because, first of all, things that look good are important for our environment. I mean, it's better for things to look good than to look bad. Of course, the problem there is it depends on whose opinion you're seeking. But I think the value of a designer, for example, to a businessman, is that he can add a great deal of value to his product, to the businessman's product. And I don't think that businessmen really understand this. He can improve the quality by making it look better, and very often the designers have ideas that not only improve the appearance of the product, but also improve the product itself. I mean, this of course is truer in industrial design than it is in graphic design. But a designer is a good designer who understands his business, can make things memorable, make them easy to recall, which is very important, and improve the general quality of life, which is the only reason for our existence.
Yeah. Well, is that why? Was that your motivation? You started out as an art director, didn't you? I mean, did you get into the field?
Oh no, I started out as somebody working in the bullpen.
Which is, for people who don't know that...
No, I really never considered myself an art director. I don't even like the title. I never understood what an art director is supposed to be, or why he's called an art director. I mean, a director in music is a guy who stands up front with a baton, and the people who do the work are in front of him. But what does an art director do? He just calls up an artist to do the work. So I never could understand it. Even when I was an art director for an agency, most of my time was occupied doing work, and I had an assistant who was really the real art director, because it had to do with meeting people, talking to people, ordering this and ordering that, and I hated to do that. And
what's your joy? What gives you the greatest pleasure in the kind of work you do in designing?
Well, the greatest pleasure is solving problems, which is an awful way of describing my pleasure. It's getting a kick out of doing something that is right. That's right for the job. And I think you can do beautiful things that are completely inappropriate for what you're doing, and in that case, I think it's absolute nonsense. But I think the trick is to be practical at the same time that you're being impractical in the common jargon, the common understanding of what practical means. I mean, it's very important to consider aesthetics, and it's important to consider content. I mean, they both have to be existing, otherwise you're just wasting your time. And a lot of the good stuff that students particularly who complain about having difficulty after they get out of school is because what they do, even if they're talented, and even if what they do is beautiful, the things don't work. I mean, they don't communicate, the people don't understand what they're doing, and so they have one hell of a time.
Now, why is they too interested in just being fashionable than
Yeah,
than
I would say
communicating?
that's a big thing today. Trendy and fashionable, and doing the latest, and choosing typefaces that nobody else has chosen, and for no other reason. Stuff like that.
Well, let me hold it, in terms of, you said doing things that are right. I hear something, of course, you're very well known for, identified with, almost more so than maybe the company itself, but the IBM logo. Now, what makes this so right? Actually, I'd like to quote you. I think somewhere you said, there's nothing about the IBM symbol that suggests computers except what the viewer reads into it. Stripes are now associated with computers because the initials of a great computer company happen to be striped. It sounds like you're almost, diminishing what's in there.
No, I'm not diminishing. I think that's a fact. I think people don't understand how or why a logo is designed. They don't understand. Most clients or people on the street think that the important thing about a logo is that it illustrates what the business does or what it represents, which is nonsense. And I think it's proven by this logo. I mean, a logo becomes meaningful only after it's used. In other words, the illustration that represents the logo is the product and not the logo. So that comes after the logo, and that of course requires that the thing is seen and associated, and the association is what makes the logo. I mean, that could have been terrible. As a matter of fact, I did an article called Good Design is Goodwill, in which I talked about this logo, and I said at the time that if I had done an IBM in Old English, it might have been accepted.
I mean, if it was used everywhere and you saw it on the machines.
Everybody sees it and uses it, it's a great logo. And everybody, instead of using stripes, would be using Old English,
Okay.
which happens to be true.
Now, this happens to have 8 bars running through it. Was there something magical going on in that dictated? Did that have 8 bars for you? Or I mean,
No, the number has nothing to do with numerology.
Or significance to something that?
No, it's just a practical. I mean,
why 8? Why not?
Well, the number of bars. If there were more bars, we have one that's 13 bars and it's lighter, and that's a practical. If you want to use a logo that's lighter in value, you use 13 stripes.
So it's not a sacred.
No, it's not sacred. It's just a matter of value.
Okay.
It decreases the value. In other words, if that's solid black, it's much heavier than if it's striped. And a stripes are similar to a Ben-Day. It's a tonal problem. But that's not the reason those things were done. The reason I did this was that when I first did the logo, they had no stripes, and I just didn't like it. There was something wrong with it.